Why do we do it? Really? Why do we subject ourselves to the loud debate going on in our heads over every decision when it comes to our acting careers? We make decisions every day, maybe hundreds of times. Yet when it comes to our acting careers, we spend an inordinate amount of time evaluating every option to the point of exhaustion. What do I mean? Take the question actors have about finding agents. Who is the best one for you? Are they interested in working with me? How should I approach them? What if it doesn't work out? When will I make the connection? And the voices in our head go on and on and on, and it's not just about agents. It seems to happen to about every aspect of our acting careers. The fear of making a mistake is more painful than the decision itself. My answer? Just show up. Today's episode is all about keeping it simple and just showing up. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, and this is Casting Actors Cast.
It's time for another episode of Casting Actors Cast. Here he is, your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting director Jeffrey Dreisbach with McCorkle Casting in New York. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm very excited to share this information with you today. If you're a first-time listener or you're just jumping into the talent pool today, congratulations. Nice to have you here. I encourage everyone who's interested in getting as much information as possible about the podcast, the podios, the podcast videos, to go to our website, castingactorscast.com, all one word, castingactorscast.com. And there you're going to find all kinds of information about these podios, these podcast videos. By the way, there is a form right at the very top of the landing page that says dive into the talent pool. And if you do that, that is going to open up some freebies for you that I encourage you to check out. One is a book called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. It's a 100-page PDF, yours absolutely free just by filling out that form. By the way, you give me your email address. I don't do anything with that. Please rest assured. On occasion, I might send out an announcement about an upcoming episode, but I promise you I don't spam you or anything like that. It's also a place where you can leave me a comment, ask some questions, but there's also some freebies called a video that we call Casting Secrets, What They Don't Tell You. It's a free, exclusive 20-minute video that you can watch right there. Also, there are Jeff's Jots. Jeff's Jots are corresponding show notes to each of the episodes of Casting Actors Cast, so you can read along, you can take them with you. They're great sort of cheat sheets. They're the notes that I use when I am doing a podcast video. So you get all of the information there. It's absolutely free. Listen, my whole point of doing this is just to make this community feel more comfortable and more confident about a very challenging career. When you jump into acting, it isn't always easy, so I'm trying my best to make it as easy as possible. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. Now this is my shout out to my good friends at Actors Connection. ActorsConnection.com/New York. They are all online, and you can work with actual working professionals in the business. We're talking agents, managers, casting directors, professional voice casting directors, artists, all kinds of really cool people with all kinds of great programming. You should really check out Actors Connection if you haven't already done so. So thank you for that. By the way, we just have an agreement, Actors Connection and I, and that is I put a shout out to them, and on occasion they'll go ahead and talk about future episodes of the podcast. So there's that synergy, but that's the relationship that we have. So I hope that makes sense for you. And again, I'm so glad that you are here. So let's talk about this now. We like to complicate things so much sometimes. It's almost like we're filling the void of just kind of being able to chill out and relax about stuff. We seem to have to fill it up with all kinds of debate going on in our head. And so I put together some ways to keep your acting career decisions simple. You might have heard the phrase, keep it simple. Sometimes the phrase goes, keep it simple, stupid. But I'm not calling anybody stupid. I just think keeping your perspective, having an ability to take a look at a problem or a situation when it comes to your acting career is something that you could actually recondition yourself to being a little more accepting and a little more positive about the nature of whatever the problem is when it comes to your acting career. So here are some ways to keep your acting career decisions simple. My first thought is to prescribe a set amount of time for the pros and the cons, for the debate you might be having in your head. In other words, if you just decide to mull it over, I love that phrase, mull it over. I'm not sure what that means, although I'm thinking hot mulled wine. That means that it's cooking or it's boiling. And see where I'm going with that? And so I don't mean for you and don't want you to mull anything over. Just giving yourself a set amount of time for the problem. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes thinking about the pros and the cons of this decision. And guess what? Then I'm going to move on. Then I'm either going to make a decision or decide that I'm going to make the decision to make a decision later. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Here's another suggestion that I want to make. Stop overthinking every detail about your acting career by asking only 3 W questions. The W questions. There's only 3 W questions that you need to answer when it comes to anything about your acting career. What, when, and why. If you can just simply have a detailed answer for the 3 W questions, regardless of any dilemma, you're going to find yourself a level of clarity that you might not otherwise have found. So asking yourself those 3 W questions, what, when, and why. So when it comes to, for example, the introduction, I talked about finding an agent. What is the best move for me to find an agent? That's a great question. When should I start the process of looking for an agent? And then why? Why should I do this now? Why should I get an agent now? Now, if you have clarity with answers on those 3 questions, you're going to find yourself in a much better position to not only take action, but you're going to be much more comfortable and much more confident moving forward with the choices that you do make. Here's another suggestion I want to make. I would love for you to think about outsourcing the question with resources. So think of it this way. Outsource with resource. What do I mean by that? Well, come on, think about it. If you pose the dilemma or the problem or the issue or the question as far as your show business career is concerned, with other like-minded individuals, with people that are there to support you, other professionals in the industry, those are resources. So tap into those folks that you already know in the business. Maybe it's somebody that you work with. Maybe it's a director. Maybe it's a casting director that you've had a good relationship with. So simply outsource those questions and ask, what would be the best move for me? Now, as long as you've answered the 3 W questions, you're going to be able to approach those resources with a lot of clarity. And it's not just an emotional sort of, I wonder if I should and blah, blah, blah. It's much more about being very professional and concrete. So when you outsource the question with resources, you have a very clear approach to any dilemma that you might find. Now, here's another suggestion. I want you to trust your gut. You know what? Trusting your gut, not enough credit is given to this very, very useful tool. Actors are sensitive people by nature. That creative energy that you have going for yourself can also make you sensitive to any situation that you are confronted with. And rather than have this debate raging on, what is your gut telling you? So I don't think we trust our gut enough. I think we are so fearful of making a mistake that we keep ourselves in some sort of state of limbo. So I think the useful tool of trusting your gut is something that you should really embrace and not put down and not push aside. It's a very, very useful tool, that. So now let's move into ways to show up to your acting career. So here are some very specific ways that I want you to consider as you move forward and move ahead into your acting career. So this first suggestion I think makes sense. Decide what you have control over versus what you don't. You know what? That took me as an actor, that took me a long time to figure out. What do I have control over versus what I don't? If I kept that in the forefront of my thinking, it was really amazing how I could move myself away from those things that I have no control over and focus my energy and attention to those things that I do. So, once again, decide what you have control over versus what you don't. Now, also moving on from there, not deciding, not making a decision is also a choice. That might make sense. So the decision to not make a decision is a decision. And that's okay, right? That's okay. Decide that you're going to decide later. Not deciding is also a choice that might make sense. Here's another one. I would suggest that you stop reflecting on the fantasy possibilities. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like recently there's this $2 billion lottery fever happening. And the thing that makes lottery so attractive is the what ifs. You know, the what if scenario. What would I do with $985 million? I mean, I can't even, your brain just doesn't want to entertain that, right? I mean, it's just so extraordinary. But that's part of the fun, that fantasy. So when we apply that to our acting careers, sometimes we do those what-if scenarios and we play out these fantasies. If you can control that, if you're really aware that it's just about putting one foot in front of the other, it's just about, showing up, that the more that you can limit your reflecting on those fantasy possibilities, the more realistic your choices are. When we live in those fantasy parts of our brain, we're using that energy in a way that's almost always not going to come true. So I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but stop reflecting on the fantasy possibilities. Start really living in the real world of what is next. What is the next best thing? Here's another thought. And this is in tying in, I think, to the last comment about fantasy possibilities, is just simply stay reasonable. Stay reasonable with the thought that A goes to B goes to C. That if I take my time, I resource, I outsource, I get and assemble all of the information, then the next logical step is for me to proceed this way. So keeping it really simple for yourself makes a lot of sense. A goes to B goes to C. Now, as we wrap this up today, career habits that make sense. These are the positive statements, I think, that are really helpful for you as you build your career. Number one, limit the issues to asking simply one question. Simply one question. What is the best way for me to get an agent? Using that example that we started off on today's podcast. What are the best choices for me to make right now? So limiting the issues to just simply asking one question becomes very healthy. And also the clarity of that is really, it feels really right. It feels really great. It's here's a good word, pragmatic way of approaching the question. Number two, just please remember that a contingency plan is just that. Just in case your first choice doesn't work out. So it's always good to have a contingency plan. If this doesn't work out, then my next step will be this. It doesn't mean that you're diminishing the energy you're putting into the first choice. But it does mean that if you include the contingency plan, just in case it doesn't work out, you're now putting yourself in a much more powerful position to be less hurt, less disappointed, and less emotional if something doesn't happen to work out the way you hope. 3, I want you to remain open to your projection not working. If it doesn't work out, many things don't work out in our life. But we just are confronted with issues that sometimes we have no control over, and it doesn't work out to the best to our ability, whether that's an audition or finding an agent or a class situation that goes awry, whatever. I can't even think of the best example, but just remain open to the fact that it might not work out. And the way that you embrace that concept is just remember that it is not a failure, but it's just it's a ramp to exit off of and another road to get on. So it's not negative, double negative. It's not negative. It really isn't. It really is just about, okay, this happened. Now I'm going to go in this direction. So it's just get off that exit ramp if it's not working out. Get onto another road. Keep on moving. Move forward. Just show up, in other words. Just show up no matter what. Sometimes all you have to do is show up. Also, sometimes the bigger picture is a better way to view your acting career. Long-term strategy is often better than short-term wins, I promise you. When you give yourself permission to keep it simple and just show up, you are moving into a place where you will see a healthier version of yourself. That healthier version is going to take hold and it's going to flourish. I promise. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. Thank you for tuning in. This is Casting Actors Cast.
Thank you for joining Casting Actors Cast. Please don't forget to review, like, and share Casting Actors Cast wherever you get your podcast videos. Thanks. I'm Megan Grace Martinez.